morning, then kids watching online as well. Now today I have someone that I want to introduce to you.
Yes.
I haven't really practiced this that much. Now, this is Naaman. Now Naaman is the commander of the army of a country called Aram. Now, Naaman is a brilliant soldier. He was really good, and so the king was really pleased with him. And in fact, the king was so pleased with Naaman that they became great friends. Now, Naaman, one time when he went on a mission with the army, he went to a country called Israel and he captured some people and brought them back, and they were put to work as slaves in his country. And one of the people that he brought back at that time was just a little girl. And this little girl was taken from her country in Israel, from her family, and she ended up working for Naaman's wife. And she did all the cleaning, all the cooking, all... There you go, give me a bit of dust down there. And that's what she did. So life was good for Naaman. He had a good job, he had good friends, he had servants in his house, everything was good. But something happened. Naaman got leprosy. Now in those days, that was bad. In those days, there was no cure for leprosy. And leprosy was a skin disease. People who had leprosy had big blotches on their skins that were really, really itchy. And it was horrible. Eventually they would turn into sores, and it would get so bad that even their fingers or their hands or their toes might even fall off. So actually, it wasn't good. Naaman had this leprosy. Remember this little girl? Now, she was from the country of Israel where people knew God. Now, they didn't always worship God like they should, but this little girl, she knew about God, and she knew that God was a God of love, and she knew that her God could heal Naaman. And she also knew that in Israel there was a prophet, and we know, because we've talked about prophets before, that prophets talk and listen to God, and she knew that the prophet Elisha would be able to help Naaman, her boss. But she was just a little girl. She was very young, in a strange country where no one else knew about God, only her. But she was brave, and she went and spoke to her boss. She went and spoke to Naaman's wife, and she said, if only my master Naaman could go and see the prophet of God in Israel, then he could be healed from his leprosy. When Naaman heard about it, he went straight to his friend the king and told him all about it. And his friend the king said, of course you must go to Israel. I'll tell you what, I'll send some gifts. I'll send gold and silver and lots of beautiful clothes, and you can give them to the king of Israel. Oh, and I'll send a letter explaining why I've sent you. So Naaman and some of his servants and friends, they set off on their journey to Israel. And when they got there, they went straight to the palace. Give me a second. Well rehearsed as usual. So, I figured not supposed to be in there. Okay, so Naaman went straight to see the king of Israel, and he handed over the gifts. And then they started to read the letter. And the letter said, greetings from the king of Aram. This is my servant, my friend, Naaman, and I've sent him to you so that you might heal him of his leprosy. What? How can I do that? Am I God? Can I give life? Can I heal diseases? Is this man, this king, is trying to pick a fight with me? Maybe he wants our two countries to go to war, and the king was terrified. When the prophet Elisha heard how scared the king was, he came and he said, look, why are you so scared? Send Naaman to me, and he will see that there is a God in Israel. So Naaman went off to meet up with Elisha. He went to Elisha's house, and I imagine that he knocked on the door, and he would have thought, probably standing there thinking, what am I going to say when Elisha comes out? I'll tell him all about my leprosy, and he'll probably pray for me, and he'll call on God, and then I'll be healed. But even though he knocked on the door, Elisha didn't come. He knocked on the door of the prophet, and he didn't even come to see Naaman to find out what the problem was. Instead, he sent his servant with a message. And the servant said, Naaman, Elisha says you are to go to the river Jordan, and when you get there, you have to dip in the water 7 times, and then you'll be healed from your leprosy. Naaman thought, what? How? Why? How is that? I mean, how would that work? And why Jordan? And he thought, but the rivers in my country, they're lovely rivers. They're full of fresh, clean water. Jordan is a dirty river compared to those. So basically, this man who I thought would come out and pray with me and call on God, all he's told me to do is take a bath in a dirty river. And he stormed off in a rage. More rageful than that. So, Naaman's friends and servants went after him and they said, look, listen to us for a minute. They said, if the prophet of God had asked you to pay lots of money or do something very hard and difficult, you would have done it. You would have done your best to do it. Now, I know this is not what you expected to happen, but the prophet Elisha hasn't given you anything difficult to do. It's not what you expected, but it's not hard. Why don't you just do it? So Naaman went to the river Jordan, and he began to dip down into the river. 1. No change. 2. Still there. 3. Can't seem to get rid of this leprosy yet. 4. 5. 6. Keep up. But the 7th time. Wow. What a difference. The leprosy is completely gone. Naaman went back to Elisha's house, and this time Elisha did come out to speak to him. And Naaman said, now I know without a doubt that the God of Israel is the one and only true God. I will never worship those false gods in my country anymore. And Naaman promised, from this day on, I will only worship the Lord. So Naaman learned that day, he learned that there's one true God. And he also learned that you can only do things God's way. We might have our ideas of how God might work things out for us or do things for us, but what we have to learn is to do things God's way. So Naaman was healed that day, but he wasn't healed by the king of Israel. He wasn't healed by Elisha. Do you know what? He wasn't even healed by the dirty water in the river Jordan. He was healed by God. But none of that would have happened if it hadn't been for this young girl, all on her own, but she believed in God. And not only that, she was brave enough to tell other people who didn't know about God at all. And she was brave enough to speak up. That's how we're able to tell you today the story of Naaman. Now, the story of Naaman reminds me about a song that we used to sing whenever I was little. And some of you might know, because I know you sing some of these songs still in GB and BB, but we've never sung it here before. And sometimes we think of God's love like a river, and that's because there's so much of it, it just keeps flowing. The river never stops, it just keeps flowing. There's so much water. And you know the other song we sing, so high you can't get over it, so wide you can't go round it. But this one is deep and wide. Hands up, who knows that? Good. Well, that's good. And you all know the actions as well, because we like the actions here in Dublin.